Live. Welcome back to the lab. This is Josh, Grey Duck Customs. Got a little special project for you guys today. I did a very quick rapid cast of a silicone. I shouldn't say of a silicone. Did a very quick rapid cast silicone mold of a Bonneville Streamliner model. And this car is actually modeled after a friend of mine. Shout out Burkdoll Racing, Bo and Jim and BJ and Timmy. We're going to pop this open real quick, and then we are going to mix our casting urethane, and we are going to pour ourselves a resin model. So this is going to be kind of fun, I hope. And with any luck, we're going to get a part that pops out of the mold good, and we are going to get a really nice resin pour here. So let's get cracking, if you know what I mean. So this is nothing more than a cardboard tube. Let me grab kind of what I started with. So I literally started with a cardboard tube, and I took a saw and I cut it right down the middle of it. That way it separates real easy. I took some clear packing tape and I put that on the insides of our tube. I'm going to change the camera view just a little bit here to improve the lighting, I think. Let's see if I can get this a little bit better for you guys. There we go. Try to help out with the shadows, right? So, yeah, basically, I took a cardboard tube, sectioned it right down the center, put some clear packing tape on the insides of it so it releases easy. Got some hot glue around the base here just so the silicone didn't leak out. And we're going to demold this thing. Hopefully it didn't stick too bad. The hot glue is always a son of a gun, but that's okay. Cut right down our seam here. Using a razor blade, real easy. I'm going to end up making a couple different copies of this. This was just kind of the rough first get a cast going of this project. After we get a successful resin pour here, I'm going to do a little bit of body work, a little bit of touch up, and then we'll make some production versions of this. So if you're into the die cast world at all, Hot Wheels, Matchbox, etc., I am going to be making 1/64 copies of this. And that looks pretty good on that side. So on this side, I have a piece of hardware here that's holding the actual model vertical. You guys will see that in just a second here. So I got to peel the tape off. Get this piece of hardware out here. Hopefully it comes out without too much issue. Close. We're close. There's about a million different ways to do a silicone mold. This one, like I said, was kind of down and dirty. It was just something real simple to pour a quick cast so we didn't wreck our pattern. For the pattern, I actually got a streamliner off of eBay from a Bonneville record holding plaque, which sounds kind of sacrilegious, but there's no other way to get one of these models. And since I am not a 3D printer type of guy, I like to do things by hand. That was our best option. So there we go. This is our silicone mold. And you can see it's kind of crazy right now. But I know that the streamliner is vertical here. And I need to get this out so we can do a pour. So I'm going to literally take a razor blade and I'm going to cut right down the center here. Hopefully I hit the streamliner model, which I did. Got a couple washers in there. So hit the streamliner model there. We're just going to run a razor blade right down the back side here, right up the center. And this is where I'm going to kind of get a little crazy because I want to try to not get the silicone too messed up here, but I want to get that model out. And you can kind of start to see the model inside there. So I want to open up a nice resin pour channel too. So I'm going to just kind of cut this out a little bit. Keep going a little bit further there until I see the actual model. Like I said, this is just the first of a couple different steps we're going to do. So once I get this model out here, we'll do a resin cast of it quick. And then the resin cast is what we're actually going to be modifying. So, all right, let's see if I can finagle this model out of here. I need a little bit more relief there, it looks like. You can do this for any sort of hobby stuff, whether it's Legos or Hot Wheels or sculptures. It doesn't really matter. A tube mold works fantastic. Sorry. I'm going to try to... Yeah, no, we're not making one of those. We are making a race car model. You'll see in just a second here. If I can get this out of here. Crazy enough, this race car model, like I said, was modeled after a friend of mine's streamliner. And he went 300 and some odd miles an hour with this car and crashed it pretty good. So I guess in some way it was kind of blown up. Let's see here. I'm just gonna grab a pliers. I hate to mar this up too bad, but I don't want to try to do this by hand. If I can get something to grab onto here. This was a metal cast model. Originally it was iron poured or iron cast. There we go. So there is our streamliner model. Like I said, this is Burkdoll Racing's old streamliner model. Like I said, he did crash this going 300 and some odd miles an hour. So they've got a new one now that goes just as fast, and it looks really, really pretty. So if you're into Bonneville land speed racing, check out Burkdoll Racing. They're my homies. And yeah, this one was pretty cool. But yeah, it was part of a trophy. So when you break a record at Bonneville, you get a trophy that shows your mile per hour and all your speeds and stuff like that. And the only way you get one is if you break a record. So this thing popped up on eBay as part of a trophy package, and I robbed the model because we want to make new ones. And so I know you can't really see inside our silicone cast right now, but inside this silicone brick is the shape of this. So we're going to mix up some part A and part B of casting resin, and we're going to pour that right down the top hole there, and hopefully we're going to get a really nice resin copy. Once I get the resin copies of this, I'm going to kind of tune them up a little bit. This is not the ideal tool for this. I should have got an X-Acto blade. Sorry, most of my hobby stuff is at the house, and we're doing the model over here. So what I'd like to do with the resin cast, once I get the resin cast, is open the bottom of the chassis up, and I'm going to end up doing actual moving wheels and tires, because I really want this to be a rolling model, you know, kind of like a Hot Wheels or Matchbox. And so once I get the resin cast, I can take a Dremel, I can hog out all that bottom stuff and create a nice chassis for this. And I might even do something how the original car does with like a removable hatch. So we can put a detailed engine inside of there, maybe a little driver's seat, but it's a lot easier to do that in resin than it is to do that in cast metal. And you can see this cast metal one has a part line right down the center of it. And I didn't really want to, I didn't really want to modify this, you know, like it's part of a record trophy. So we can just keep that as is. That'll go on the shelf. And we do everything in resin because resin's cheap, resin's easy. It forms really, really cakewalk. So I'm just going to take my razor blade here and open up this pore channel a little bit more. There we go. So I don't have all my fancy X-Acto blades and stuff, but I really want the resin to be able to pour in that channel. This is looking pretty crazy right now, but it's okay. It's okay. It's all good, right? Okay. So you can see it got the tail section, got a big cavity there. So when the resin goes down, I'll be able to separate this out. I may need to cut this a little bit further just to get this out a little easier. Because in iron, it's really easy to pull on it and get that sucker out. Once it's plastic, the plastic's not going to be as forgiving, and I don't want to break these. So there we go. It's not a huge deal. If we put a little bit more of a seam there to help us get the final product out, I think that's all about what we need. So I'm going to end up having to do this vertically because we're going to pour down the top of the center here. Since I do have a split down the seam here, I am going to need to tape this back together real quick. And I like to use one of two things, either yellow 3M tape or clear packing tape. The clear packing tape works really, really good. If I don't do anything with this, when I pour the resin down, the resin's going to actually go out of that seam and it's going to make a crazy mess. So I can find my seam here. This will be really, really simple. I'm just going to do a couple wraps of clear packing tape up the center of this here. Make sure the resin doesn't go pouring out of it when we do our cast, because that's always a bummer. You pour your resin and then half of it stays in the part and half of it gets all over your table, which is no fun. That should be totally fine. Just like so. Now, here comes the fun part. This casting resin is 1-to-1. So 1 part A, 1 part B, right? Pretty simple. And that is done by volume, not weight. So if you're going to use weight, there's a different formula. But for doing 90% of the castings, it's by volume. So you just get 2 cups, eyeball them up in terms of the approximate height. And I'm not going to be too cautious when it comes to being exact here. It's just going to be a quick eyeball it up and call it good enough. And this is plenty of resin, I hope. We'll find out in a second here. Maybe I'll do a little bit more just in case. Once I pour one, I'll kind of get an idea of what it actually takes to do this, but we do not want to end up short on our resin pour. And I'm going to need to get a taller cup here because I don't have enough room right now. Let's see here. This is going to be a little overkill. I definitely don't need this much cup, but it's all good, right? It's no big deal. We'll use what we have, and this is what I have. Most of the time I'm doing fiberglass resins and epoxies and stuff, so the 32-ounce mixed cups is kind of my jam. Got a mix stick here. That'll be cool. So with this particular resin system, I get about 30 to 45 seconds of work time before it starts to go off. So one of the things you got to be kind of ready for is once you mix the two parts together, you are on a very, very, very limited time schedule. There's our part A. There's our part B. And we are off to the races officially. So it doesn't require a whole ton of mixing. Literally 5 to 10 seconds of just making sure the product is mixed and you're good to go. This is very, very, very low viscosity, so it kind of pours extremely fast. On some of the larger casts, it gets kind of tricky because although you do have different time schedules, if you're not on it, you just make a mess of your part real quick. And we are going to pour nice and slow right down that cavity. Try not to make a mess over the table, you know. And I think I'm going to probably do 3 or 4 of these plastic resin ones right out of the gate, because once I do my production molding, I'd like to have something that has more than just one part at a time. It's always better to have multiple castings if you can do multiple castings. We're just going to kind of babysit this and see how long it takes before this starts to go off. You'll start to see a color change pretty darn quick here. It'll also start to get pretty hot. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this resin cast. Yep, I can. There we go. The more mixing you do, the faster it'll go off, but this is a very, very fast set resin system. We're kind of going to be patient. We're not going to really go anywhere right now. It's just we're off to the races, if you know what I mean. Set that up sideways so you guys can see what happens when it starts going off. We'll get a really, really crazy color change. If you're really, really good and really, really patient, you can start making art with this stuff. Once it does go off, you can pour it out of a cup and make it look like a drink that's falling out of a actual pourable drink. So the reason why I'm starting to do this is, like I said, I'd really like to make some die-cast style Hot Wheels versions of this. And just the other day, I was doing a large-scale streamliner mold. Oof, that's not going to fit in the. That's not going to fit in our field of view. I did a large-scale fiberglass mold of a different streamliner. This is a Jocko Johnson streamliner, and it's pretty darn awesome. So this is all fiberglass molded on the backside. But I did this a few days ago, and I figured while I'm in the streamliner mode, I might as well do some miniature fiberglass ones, or do some miniature models as well. You can see the color of that going off now. It's not that dark color. And this will start going off a little bit here in a minute. I hope anyway. The stuff in the mold is going off, so that's a good start. Typically, I wait about half an hour to 45 minutes. Yeah, here we go. I can feel the heat on the bottom of the cup. It's got to be getting it's getting pretty warm actually. Let me grab a temp gun. We'll see what kind of temps we get out of that. Got our fancy dancy digital temperature gun there. So we're sitting at 104, 105 degrees right now, 103, depending on where we're firing it, 95, 75 on the top of that. if we start rotating this around, it'll actually start to stick to the walls of the cup. Like I said, if you're really crafty, you can make art out of this relatively easily. You just got to babysit it until you get that perfect amount of jelliness, I guess I'm going to call it, because eventually it'll stop moving around here. But you can do all kinds of cool stuff with this. See, it's really starting to hang on the walls now. So if you're really, really patient, let me try to get a. So if you're really patient, you pour it right at the correct time, you can almost get this to be a drip. We're sitting at 113, 114 degrees. Nope. I'm rusty. It's going to go off before it actually drips. Sorry, I tried. You get the idea, though. See if that is turning into resin now, and you can kind of manipulate this a little bit at this point. It's definitely not cured, but it's not liquid anymore. Put it that way. Whew, that's getting warm. So yeah, typically I don't reuse the cups. I'll just throw them away. This one I can kind of reuse, I think. Pull it off while it's gummy. One thing in the resin casting business, just like the fiberglass world, your disposables are just kind of part of the game. Cups, gloves, paintbrushes, all that kind of fun jazz. And this will stay kind of gummy for probably a good solid 15, 20 minutes where it's going to be like this. And it takes, like I said, about an hour before it actually cures out. So that's pretty much the fun for the day. I suppose I could pop back on live and pop this out in about another hour. I don't know. That might be kind of cool. Or I'll do a short on it. We'll see. But yeah, I think we're done for the day. Um, that's how to do a quick silicone mold and resin cast. So I'll post this up a little bit later. And thanks everybody for stopping by, saying hi. And I will catch you guys all later. If you're not subscribe, like some videos. If you're into the fabrication stuff, you can head over to my Instagram channel. That would be Gray Duck Customs. And there's a lot more carbon fiber and fiberglass projects going on over there. If you're into hot rods, I built a hot rod called Project Honda Rod, which is a mid-engine Honda powered roadster. And it's basically a street legal go-kart, for lack of a better term. Very, very fun. Open wheel, no roof, no fenders, no problem. So that's another cool project we got going on. But yeah, I'm gonna do nothing but sit around and watch the resin dry here for a few, and then we'll pop this out in a little bit and see what we get. So thank you guys for all stopping by. I will catch you all later on the next episode. Have a good one.